My name is Marmy Kopp, and I own the Spherion of Jacksonville, though I have 4 other counties in the North Florida area with Nassau, Baker, and Clay County.
I'm Diana Schaefer, and I'm the franchise owner of Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm just celebrating my 30th year this year.
My name is Ann Miller, and I'm the franchise owner of offices in Minnesota. I have 4 offices, 1 on site and 3 branches.
I'm Angela Swartz. I am the owner of the Spherion Augusta office. I have the main branch and 2 on-site locations.
So I actually started in a sales role with a company called Today's Staffing, who was then bought out by Spherion. So I started out in a sales role, and my first 6 months I was at 130% a goal, and you know what happens then? They promote you. So then they gave me another office, and then they gave me another office and another. So I ended up flying to all my different territories. I had Kansas City, I had Des Moines, Iowa, Bloomington, Illinois, and so when I was doing this, I said, why am I flying all over the United States? I should really buy a franchise of Today's. So I did, and then here I am, now a Spherion 25 years later.
You almost stumble onto the opportunity. You know, I mean, for me, I was 29. I wasn't looking to be a business owner per se. I was working for Norel, which for anyone who remembers way back when, it was a company that was acquired and then eventually became Spherion. And I was with my husband at the time, and we were in Milwaukee, and I was working for Robert Half, and the franchise was up for sale in Madison, and they approached us, and one thing led to another, and we said, sure, why not? And so that's kind of, we decided to take the plunge from that perspective, but it wasn't where, you know, that's what we were striving for, but you know, we just had an opportunity, and we just decided to seize the moment.
I think a lot of our stories are similar, and I agree with you, Diana, that it isn't necessarily your plan, but the opportunity presents itself. So I started with the company as a corporate employee working in the Minneapolis market, and I was so thrilled because I got a sales job. I finally got my 2-year degree and felt like I could be a salesperson, and it was Personnel Pool that gave me the first opportunity in sales. And of course, like many of you, you know, one thing grew to another, to another, to another. So I grew three branch offices with 1 on site in a new territory for them, and found out that they were looking for an owner in Southern Minnesota. And, you know, I didn't have any money. So I called my boss and I said, you should finance me and I'll go down and I'll be an owner and I'll make us both rich. And she didn't buy into it. I had to come up with my own money, but did make the plunge. And you know, again, it wasn't on the radar. It wasn't anything. I mean, my father was a business owner, so maybe it was in the blood, but I found myself like you, running this business for someone else like I owned it. And so it just made sense that I should own it. It's a little scarier being an owner. I mean, it's all up to you. But I'm certainly 25 years later happy that I did take that chance when I did.
I started in the industry. I actually worked 7 years in the Augusta branch for the former franchise owner, and fell in love with the business, right? Well, he owned 7 offices at the time and started to divest. He was the dog that caught the train, as they say, and he was ready to move on to something different. So he downsized to the last 2 branches, which was Augusta and Savannah, and he brought somebody in as a managing regional manager. Well, she and I just didn't quite see eye to eye on all things, and you know, I can be pretty outspoken. I finally picked up the phone one day and I called him and I said, Carlton, I'm just going to let you know, I can't do this anymore, and I really appreciate all the opportunity that you've given me, but you may want to start looking for a new manager in Augusta because I can't work with her. And so he said, well, Angela, what would you do if it were your business? Well, I told him quite a bit. The next day I came in, I know, right? Me, outspoken, it doesn't happen. So anyway, the next day I come into the office, I get a phone call, and he says, I want to sell you Augusta. And that's kind of how that all played out. And like Diana, 28 years old, you know, when I purchased into the organization, and I was very blessed, you know, the former franchise owner, you know, did fund my, you know, purchase. And it's been a heck of a ride since. 25 years later, here we go.
I'll start on this one, and you know, it's kind of funny because right now we all talk about mentors. I'm telling you, 37 years ago, we weren't talking about mentors. It was just, you know, it is what it is. But I look at role models, and I have to say that my parents, like many of you, I'm sure, my parents were role models. They owned a grocery store, and they had 13 kids, and they worked very hard to make ends meet. And I saw how hard it was. And quite honestly, because of that experience, and I saw how hard it wasn't my plan to be a business owner. And so when I was running the business like I owned the business, then it kind of clicked, and it made sense for me to become an owner. So, but I would say they were my role models in business. The gal that hired me up in Minneapolis was fabulous. She's the one who taught me the business. She worked crazy, you know, was a very hard worker. And she's passed away a couple of years ago, but she certainly was someone to emulate. And I think, she was a great leader, showed me the ropes. But I never called her a mentor because that word didn't exist back then, but more of a role model.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a mentor that necessarily comes to mind. I think that as you go through different chapters in your life, there's different mentors for different things that you're going with, where you want to either emulate or follow advice. I remember that I had a regional vice president that I was very close to, that kind of took me under her wing, and she had her little Southern accent, and you know, she had these little isms that always like stuck to me. You know, like one of them was, you always get more with sugar than salt. I even say that to my kids right now when they get, you know, kind of ornery. But she was probably someone that was a good mentor as another female that was a tough cookie, but very soft in the exterior. So yeah, that's someone. And my parents, you know, my father worked so hard all of his life. And, you know, I just thought that that's just the way you worked. You know, you go to work every day and you give it 100%. And you never really thought that there was anything but that was the way to proceed in life. So I would say my parents as well.
Sounds like we have a lot of similarities, because I would say my family as well too. And I was raised in a family-owned business, and we talked about business at dinner every night. And there were 3 girls. I'm the youngest of 3, and my oldest sister then started a business, and she's had her business for 40 years. And so I think just, you know, again, like you said, Diana, it's watching your family work so hard to build things. And you have this perspective of, you know, amazing work ethic, and the never say no, and customers always right. And so when you learn those, you know, sitting there at 5 years old and listening to the stories, it really impacts your full life. So my sister and I, so not only am I from an entrepreneurial family, I'm also from a very competitive family. So whether it was games or whatever it was, we were always competitive. And so my sister and I think I always liked watching how she grew her business and what she did, but I always liked trying to beat her. Do you know what I mean? Just a little bit. So there was always that side as well too. So I would say that though I've had other great mentors, I think it just started at a very young age, and my sister and I talk every day about business, which is kind of crazy, but she never gets tired of it. And so that's awesome.
You know, as far as, like you said, a mentor, I think I've all along the way been blessed to come across people that have been there to help me through various aspects of life. You know, my father, much like each of yours, you know, owned his own business. He was in the hardwood lumber business. did very well up and until they made an investment in a furniture plant. Who cooked the books before cooking the books was such a thing, right? And so I saw the downside of business and going, into bankruptcy. But, one thing, Dad, was you just put those big britches on, you get up and you keep marching on, which is what always inspired me to keep going no matter how bad it got. And then the former franchise owner, Carlton, he was so business savvy. I picked up so much in terms of the parts of business and how it all fits together so that you can manage smartly. And then I had this wonderful lady that, for whatever reason, just took a real liking to me and made it a point to keep introducing me to the right people and helping me navigate some of the places I may never have gotten into otherwise. Staffing has been my life. I mean, pretty much my entire career. And prior to that, I was in retail management, both at the time, which were female-heavy industries. So honestly, I can't say that there was a female issue in leadership at the time. So
I would say too, I've never felt a gender gap. And I always say that the only gap I ever had early on in my career was youth and inexperience, but I never felt it was because I was female. So, and for all of us, staffing is our life, has been our life for me the past 25 years. And before that, 7 years in Minneapolis, never once did I feel at a disadvantage, ever.
I would agree. And when
I agree.
The presidents and vice presidents that when I was with Today's, they were all females. And so I think the staffing world is very good to the women. And so I've always had women presidents. And then in the last 25 years, it's buck stops here with all of us, right? So
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I've never really felt, we're in a very heavily female oriented industry. I think the only time I felt a little bit of a gender gap was probably in my early years as an owner and meeting with like upper echelon male CEOs. I would be a little intimidated because I thought that they were going to take me seriously because I was 29 or 30. Mm-hmm. But it was more my youth.
I can piggyback on that youth because, you almost could sense it when you walked into the room and were like, oh, she's so cute. And the way I approach that is I'm like, yeah, I really am cute. But you know what? You're kind of old. And you're not going to be here in 5 years. But me, I'll still be here in 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, when you're able to solve their problems, the whole conversation changes, right? It's a good dynamic.
I think my only challenge has not been because I don't think it was because I was female. I think early on when I didn't get a deal or when I didn't get the signed contract or I didn't win, I was so hard on myself, and I don't know if that's a female trait or what, but I had to learn after that I had to get beyond taking things personally and pick myself up and go on to the next contract, right? So there's ups and downs in business. I don't care what business you're in, and you've got to learn to manage. It's easy to be positive and have a great time when the numbers are going in the right direction, but if they start going down or you don't win something, you really have to learn to take it all in stride and not beat yourself up over it. So I don't know if that's a female trait or if that's something I just overcame with time and experience.
I thought about this question as well too, and I don't know that I had any challenges. I think it was a personal challenge when I became a mother, and I think it was a tough time of walking the line of, when you worked 60 hours a week when you were starting your business, and then all of a sudden there's, another role that you had to play. And I think it hit home and when I took my 4-year-old to a Mother's Day, and they were supposed to write something about your mother, and all these were on the walls, and mine was, My mother works all the time. She works at 550 Water Street, and she is either on the phone or on the computer. And so it was one of those things that I was standing there crying, and he looked at me and he said, "Do you not like what I wrote?" And I said, "I love it. It's so sweet." And I went home and I was like, okay, so how do you do this role? And I think that was my biggest challenge, is just, you know, being a successful businesswoman and being a successful mother, which is the most important thing, really. So that was probably my biggest challenge, and it wasn't work, it was personal.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, Marmy. And I think you're right. We tend as women to want to be everything to everybody, right? We're mom, we're wife, we're a business owner, all those things, and trying to juggle and do it all, get the kids out to a soccer game, you know, get mom to her doctor's appointment. We're a caregiver now. You know, it's always been a challenge. You don't see men really having to do that. They're just a breadwinner and they run their company and then they get to come home. But for us, it's real personal, right? So it can be, but we made it work, right, ladies? We sure did. And I think it's, you know, your priorities shift by the minute, right? So when, you know, if you know you need to make time to get to, you know, the soccer tournament or that special event with the kids, well, you know, maybe I'm up at 4 a.m., you know, taking care of some of the other stuff so I can make time to do that. But I think that was my greatest challenge.
No, I agree with everyone's comments. You know, we have a lot of roles that we have to take on as females. And I remember in the beginning, since I went into business with my husband, whenever anybody needed to get fired, I always made him do the firing. And, you know, because we're just, you know, more emotional. And it was a little while before I was like, okay, I can do this. But I was like, oh, so-and-so needs to get fired. Dan, call them. And but anyway, I guess I overcame that soon enough, because we had to fire a lot of people over the years.
But you hired more.
Yes. I still don't like firing people.
You know, I know one of these questions is about work-life balance, and you've all been kind of speaking about that. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I took the job, and I wanted to be in sales, and I had a young family, and I actually had my two youngest when I worked for the company up in Minneapolis. But part of the reason I took this sales job is because my territory was near my home. So I could go out and sell all day, but I was always at home at night. And so, you know, when the ownership thing came up, it just was a natural progression, because I knew, again, I could own my own business and be home. Certainly I enjoyed the trips once in a while, you know, when we got to get together. But that was one of the attractive things to me about this business and being a business owner. I was lucky because my husband is my partner, and but when we went into the business, our youngest was 1, and we had to leave where we lived because I was opening a new territory, and he was always at home with the kids. And so you know, I mean, he helped me at home. He always had a home office, but I was always the face of the business. So I was always lucky because the kids always had one of us there. It wasn't always me. But certainly as an owner, you have the flexibility to go to a school program. Again, you're in near your family, right? You're working in your community. So that was a real, I mean, that's what kept me. I mean, this whole work-life balance thing, I couldn't have done it otherwise. So
Agreed.
And I always said that I let all my employees know, and I always let everyone in the company know, the first thing in my life is my family. So I let them know that my family was first and the business was second. And I think just setting that up front, and I use the same thing with my employees that all work here. Anytime anything comes up family-wise, I mean, that's the priority. And, you know, the business will go on, but just your family, you need to be sure that it's number one. And so I think that also helps loyalty with employees, because they understand you live what you say. You don't say, you know, oh, this is important, but no, we're going to go and do this. No, we have fun together. But we know that number one, our family is the most important. So I think you have to have that in perspective, and then your family's always supportive about it too.
Prepared to work hard and work harder than your competition. And if you think that being an owner is ever going to be where you can kind of step off the gas, it's not true. I mean, because as soon as you step off the gas, it affects your business. So, but the rewards are there. So, yeah, you're gonna work very hard, but it's going to be working for yourself, and there's just so much more meaning to it when the results stay in your bank account instead of someone else's bank account.
Be kind to yourself. I think I always thought that I had to get it done now. And I would say there is tomorrow too. Remember, get what you can do today, but there is tomorrow and it's going to be fine. So take care of yourself, because I think women-owned businesses, I mean, all my friends and you all, and we all put so much on ourselves. Like, we just expect so much more than probably a lot of people do. So take the time to, you know, pat yourself on the back, and also enjoy the successes and learn from the mistakes. I mean, every single time when something would go wrong, I would step back and say, okay, now what did I learn? Because I think you just, again, have to pick yourself back up, because you're going to go and do it again tomorrow. But you don't want to, I mean, sometimes we make the same mistake twice, but you usually try not to, and you learn. So listen to what happens, and then go back and analyze it, and then see what you'll do differently. But again, celebrate your successes. That's always a fun thing to do.
And, you know, I think, Normie, you're so right. You have to embrace those failures. You're still learning. Don't be discouraged by them. Walk away with something positive in what you're going to do differently. And then again, too, I think is, you know, just be ready and be the Weeble. Do y'all remember Weebles, wobble, but we don't fall down? I mean, you're going to get knocked around quite a bit in this business, and your ability to pick yourself right back up and keep going is what's going to, you know, make you successful. You know, always in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, I just don't know if I could do this anymore. Well, what if you quit now and it's right there around the corner? You're going to be so upset. So sure enough, you know, I kept plowing away. I'm going to, keep going. So just know being resilient is going to be important. And then I would also say, and this is kind of funny considering the business we're in, hire good people. You know, I think one of the lessons that I really learned is there's a saying out there, slow to hire, quick to fire, right? Take your time, get the right people on your team, hire people that are smarter than you are, and I guarantee you're going to go places a lot quicker than you would otherwise. And in the same breath, if they're not the right people, you need to get rid of them quickly, because they are a drain on your resources, they're a drain on your team, they can ruin your customer base. I mean, there's just so many negative outcomes from carrying people that aren't right for you. So that's what I would say.
I was going to say that the same thing. Hire smart, good, hardworking people, and spend the money and invest in those resources, because it'll pay off tenfold.
What I'm really excited about and what they do is that I think they focus so well on local. Their message that they get out to everyone is that we're here, we're part of the community, we're supporting companies, we're supporting associates. They have just done an excellent job of really supporting who we are, the local business owner ourselves, and then as a company supporting that community. And I think it's been fantastic. Just that clear message, consistent about the local owner. And we just did the rebranding, which I thought went very well. And I think they did a good job of that as well. So I think they support who we are. I think they understand that we blood, sweat, and tears in our community, and that can't be any more important.
And I think too that they recognize that, while they've been really good about providing us with those tools and the resources that we need to drive success in our communities and proven things that work, the reality is, what may work in Wisconsin or over in Florida may not necessarily work in Augusta, Georgia. And if that's the case, they've always partnered in the respect, okay, well, you don't have to do it this way. How can I help you do it that way, right? So that you can drive the change and the growth that you're looking to do in your market in a way that would be better suited to your market and community.
I think it's very supported. I don't know if it's gender specific about supporting women. As we said, the staffing world is heavily dominated by women executives. As our president of our division and our president of the United States, UK, they're women. So I think that that's encouraging, because I think that there's this entourage of very powerful women in our business, which is great. And it's very invigorating, to kind of see that, because they're all role models to us and we're all role models to each other. But yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of really good positive support.
And I would agree with what you are all saying. And my response when I read the question was, it isn't gender specific, obviously. It just, and I'm not really sure why the industry is more heavily female, because there are certainly some very successful owners of all genders, I should say. So, but we are local, and that's the beauty of being a franchise owner, is that you do have the ability to sell the way you need to sell your market and to come up with solutions that meet the needs of your local clients. And I feel very fortunate that we have the autonomy to do that. Diana and the rest have already addressed hire the right people. I certainly have not always won on that one either, but hiring the right people, providing them the training, and then letting them be the entrepreneur within your business. And it's a beautiful thing when that starts happening, because all of a sudden, the weight is taken off of your shoulders. Business right now at 25 years is a lot easier than it was at 5, because I was doing everything. So it's wonderful to have a team that you trust can build the business, and you hope there's a future for them. Like Angela, kind of took over. You hope that there is. I'm not going to be this young forever, so I do have a plan in place for others to take over at some point. So
when I thought about this question, I did think about it a little bit more gender based, because I think that as females, we tend to lead versus manage. And I think that that's a big differentiator in terms of creating a culture where we want to mentor, we want to show by example, and we want to lead. And we want ultimately to have make their own decisions. So I think that is, what we do, right? It's not managing and delegating, and it's leading. And I think that's what's going to help us become successful in any industry.
I think probably a big key too is listening. I think whether it's listening to our clients or to our internal employees or to our associates that are coming to us for a job, I think that being a good listener and then taking that information and helping in any way that you can to get people to their success level. And I think that, especially like you said with the internal staff, empowering them to do it. I always say to them, you make the decision. There's nothing anyone could do to hurt my business. Really, there isn't. And what is more important is you make the decision, and if it all works out, great. If it doesn't, then we just talk about it and what can we do differently. But I think empowering people to make that and move forward, then we build other leaders, and that's exciting.
Absolutely. And, I could just regurgitate everything that each and every one of you just shared. I think just the only thing I would really add to that is being a positive influencer, right? Creating the vision, sharing the vision, walking the vision. And when they see that you are just as bought in as they are, I'm working as hard every day as each and every one of my team members, it makes it fun. There's a lot of energy in that. We live off those positive ions, and we just keep going. So, yeah.
And I think on that too, I always think about just do the right thing. Do the right, I mean, we all know what the right thing is, and whether it's taking care of, something that happened with an employee or taking care of, just do the right thing. And I think that's important, and taking care of people.
I think I wrote a couple things down. I said, be confident in your abilities and don't wait until you're 50 to get that college degree. So that is one. And then buy Apple and Microsoft shares.
And Amazon.
And Amazon, that would have been, yeah. It wasn't around when I was 20. So
Tesla.
yeah, Tesla.
Actually, Anne, I was thinking the same thing. Finish that college degree.
Yeah.
I feel, I would have gone a lot further much sooner had I had that education behind me to spur all that inspiration and creativity that I had that was busting at the seams. But there's a life of hard knocks, right? Learned along the way. And then as another piece was, get those big chunky earrings out of your ear, because growing up in the 80s, I can't wear earrings hardly anymore. Thank you very much.
I would say to myself, stop and smell the roses. I think.
Don't let the small things upset you, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. So it seems so serious in the early days. And when I look back now, and maybe it's that wisdom, maybe it's the age, maybe it's winning and losing. And I think I always wanted to win. And I would say, relax, stop and smell the roses, and it's all going to be okay. So that's what I would say to myself.
What I would say to my 20-year-old self is don't go at it alone. I think I've always been in a partnership. Now, as you know, with Margaret, bringing her in as a partner was a really good decision, so that you share the success, share the stress, is kind of our motto. And that just makes everything so much more palatable, and you can obtain so much more as a partnership versus going at it alone. So that would be any advice to anybody getting in business. Mm-hmm. Don't go at it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I'm with you, you always make me laugh. So how did humor help in your business throughout the years?
You know what? That's a really great question, because when I started with the company and I was in sales, and in those days it was all about phone calls and gaining the appointment. And I would just, I started with Spherion and had to if I could make the person on the other end laugh, I got an appointment. So, I always used humor to lighten it up, and it doesn't always work for you. Humor does not work with a high D. Let me tell you, they just want to throw you out. So you have to learn how to manage it. But seriously, humor it's helped me in my business. And I don't know. I don't know why. Things are just funny sometimes, aren't they?
Yes.
You know what? And I've always, we've all shed tears, right? I know that I've had more laughs than tears, many more times over and over, which makes the tears easier to handle. So, you know what? I was very quiet and shy in school, so I don't know where this person came from, truthfully. I don't know where.
Where did that little sassy pants come from?
I do not know. I do not know. I was sassy when I was 20, but I wasn't doing any of the right things at age 20. Marmy, it sounds like you had it all together. I mean, I was just getting away from beer parties in the woods. I mean, at age 20. So I did not have it together at age 20, but I was always a hard worker. And, people always treated me well. I had a few jobs before I came to Spherion. So I was always a hard worker, but had a lot of fun along the way.
I think laughter is fun and laughter. I mean, one of the core values that I used to have in a previous was number 8 was have fun. And I think that's important. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I was actually going to ask Marmy, are there any particular habits that you've adopted that really have helped you be successful?
Yes, I think a couple different ones. Probably the biggest habit is thanking and recognizing my employees all the time. I think that is, working in this industry is, there's a lot of things that go on with our employees and our clients, and we sometimes forget to stop and say thank you. And what I try to do on a daily basis is for little things, though they may not think it's a big deal, it is a big deal when, somebody did show up or they called just to follow up or this happened. And so I think the constant recognition and the thank you, whether it's big or small. Today we did a big lunch. So we had a meeting today and the whole team had lunch, and, we didn't answer the phone and we didn't do that. And I think just recognizing them consistently is probably one of the best habits that I've done. And I know they're happy, and I think when they're happy, it's good for the business, it's good for everything. So it's a lot of fun to do. Just every day I think about, okay, what did this person do, or what did, and just in the group, because we're in a big bullpen. I don't know how you all are, but we're still in the old days bullpen where we can all hear what everybody's saying and what everybody's doing. And so when someone hangs up the phone, I'll turn around and say, wow, that sounded great. You sound, that was awesome. So the daily habit of the thank you.
I have a question for kind of the general panel. So what are some things that you've done that help you to stay centered in terms of that balance in your stress and things like that? What do you have any advice and things that you have found that help you to feel that sense of balance?
Well, I start out every morning, no matter what, rain, snow, well, no snow in Florida, but rain, sleet, whatever it might be. And I do go for a walk, and I walk for at least 30 minutes, if not longer. And I call it my walk of gratitude. And during that time, I just try to focus on the positives, personally, professionally, whatever it might be. And it's my alone time, and it allows me to then also think about my day. So I think I started off right when you're always thinking about what all the great things are that go on in your life. And when I come back, my husband always said, who's a big supporter, who I've not mentioned, but I would say I couldn't have done it without him, is, he's always like, so what was the biggest gratitude today? So it's one of those things that he knows that as I leave, I'm thinking about it. And that's helped me to kind of bring it back together.
Angela, Ann, anything you want to add?
For me, it's always been music. There's always a portion of my day. It doesn't matter. It's different every day, but to get lost in some music and just sing like no one's listening. When I can do that, it just kind of washes everything out of my mind. It gives me that little bit of zen so that I can come back in and just refocus. So I know when I'm starting to get to be that woman on the edge. We tiptoe back, put the earbuds in, and we sing 2 or 3 songs, and we're good.
Along with a few chocotinis.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes.
I hate to even say this because it's kind of personal, but we live in Minnesota. We always had a hot tub outside. When we built the new house 16 years ago, we had a hot tub outside. Well, I loved it, but it does get 30 below, and we'd go out with stocking caps on, and you'd get out and freeze and get in the house. So I kind of, of course, we've got a jacuzzi tub in the house. And so in the last 5 years, I kind of went away from the hot tub and into my inside the house. But I do take a jacuzzi bath every day. And I have been working out. I know you guys, I'm sure when you see me next year, you're going to want to compliment me on, oh, I'm kidding, but I am working out every morning. I'm doing the insanity workouts. I am either all in or all out. And that's the bad thing. I am all in right now. And my daughter, who was here from California, you maybe met Jamie. She was here, and Jeff and Jamie and I, every morning we got up since January 1st, and I haven't missed a morning. If you look up insanity workouts, they're insane. And I'm not young. And there's a warning at the beginning of these tapes that says, this may not be your option for workout, but I'm doing it. And then I take a nice bath after, and life is good. But I love that walk of gratitude, because I could do my workout and think about gratitude instead of thinking about how hard I'm working, but think about things to be grateful for. And I think that's good. So what do you do, Diana?
Well, I don't do anything consistently. That's part of the problem, right? So I love hearing what you do, because, it's like flavor of the day. I do play tennis, so I try to incorporate maybe 3 times a week going and playing for a couple of hours, and that keeps me fit, and it keeps me not thinking about work for a good solid 2 hours and just whack the heck out of a ball. So that's one of my biggest things, but I feel like I need to incorporate other smaller, different types of routines that help me, because I feel like I'm always either way up or, just I need stuff, whether it's yoga or to help on a regular basis.
I think one of the joys of ownership, and I know even with my managers, one of the things that we do that keeps them engaged are these meetings. And I know that there are owners that are like, if they didn't produce that year, we're not going to take them to the owner meeting. And I'm like, that's when they need the owner meeting.
Right.
And so I bring as many people as I can along, and, we're not huge, but I do bring a few people, because you all know that bringing to these meetings and getting to know you all. And that, to me, in addition to the technology piece and staying up on tech, because I would really fall behind on that if it weren't for Spherion, but the meetings where everyone can get together. And when somebody asks me who my friends are, I'm like, well, they're all Spherion people and they don't live here. So it's been a real blessing in my life. And it has been my life, just like it's been your lives. So that's the difference between, because I worked on the branch side. I was a branch and area manager, and I know the difference. It's different. It's different. Well, you have too, right? Angela and Marmy.
Oh, yeah.
It's just different, and this is kind of a funny story. I worked in Minneapolis, and I had a really very nice territory, very nice piece of business, and did very well. I came down to Owatonna. See, I had no customers, no employees, no office, no one knew me, no one knew Spherion. Well, it was interim at the time. And it was a known, and maybe you guys got it too. One day I was an area manager, the next day I was an owner, and the level of respect maybe that I received from clientele, like, oh, you're the owner, and you're, I remember I opened in January. I fell in a snowbank on the way to this, one of my first presentations. That was back when we had presentation books, and they were all in page protectors, but I'm sitting and I'm giving this presentation. And I remember I'm so sorry, because there was water on the inside and I'm wiping it off. I said, I fell in the snowbank walking in. But that was one I did get an order because I think they just felt sorry for me.
You always got orders that way, sympathy orders. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like I had no income. I had no client, no anything. And I'm out making presentations and people are like, oh, you're the owner. And I'm like, yeah. I never said anything. Of course, I didn't have any money and I had no income, but I was the owner.
That's right.
And they gave me the business, I mean, it was just a beautiful thing, it was, and I know one of your questions was what are you most proud of? Or what are one of your biggest accomplishments? And I think we all know it's our families, right? But when it comes to business, I mean, and when you give people advice, to jump into this or not, if you don't jump into it and you have that chance, you're never going to know.
Right.
So, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to go back to your old job or you're going to do something else. I mean, it's been a fabulous ride, I have to say.
I remember the first day that I bought the franchise from another owner, and I came in the first day and it was one employee and she brought a book with her. And I said, what, because I had just come from running 5 offices or how many, and I'm like, what's the book for? And she said, oh, phones never ring here. I just read the book all day long.
Oh, how long did you keep her?
And let me tell you, she kept telling me, oh, you'll never get into that account. And she was the biggest incentive for me ever. I came back every time she said, oh, you'll never get into that account. I was like, oh.
You don't know how competitive I am, right?
I love it. That's great.
That's because I was like, I'm going to show you every single solitary account that I'm going to get in.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was an eye opener. I went for the branch was like 1,400 hours and I did payroll and they were 300 hours. I was like,
oh,
yeah. It was so nice to share this hour with all of your lovely faces. Thank you for coordinating this.
Yes, it was
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Hey, everyone.
Bye-bye.
In March.
Bye.
Maybe.
Bye.
Yeah.
Heart you, ladies. Be good.
Virtually.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.